hey, we want you to pick the Gragas because we have something in store ready for it, or they want to try and get it for themselves, because now you can see H2K, they're indecisive as to what they want to put their priority on. Ashe is still on the table. Bard is still on the table. Some of the big mid laners like Azir, Victor, yes, they took a small hit this patch, but still very valuable. And how could we forget about Karma?
No, you can't. It'll always get you back. Locked in for H2K now, of course, so gives them a little bit extra mobility. Remember, Sivir's still up and available. You could build a real speedy composition if Vitality doesn't take it away.
Sivir works wonderfully with the Karma, synergizes nicely, acts as great engage, disengage, very well rounded. But I mean, if we just look across the AD carry table, there are so many things up right now. Things like the Jhin, things like the Ashe, as you rightly said, the Sivir. And so there's just so much. It's really interesting that we're seeing so much priority on the jungle. They want to make sure that Jankos doesn't go for that early aggressive style that he's been so well known for.
And Vitality have got themselves a couple of tanky options now, and another jungle takeaway with the Gragas locked in first rotation for Shook. That's another comfortable pick for him, especially in a depleted jungle pool, and you combine it up with the Shen for Cabo.
We're also, yeah, as you rightly said, you mentioned the Shen, and this is something that has been rising in popularity a lot. Very safe laner. He can trade very effectively with his W, and because of the global pressure that he has, it's made him a lot more favorable because of the changes that we saw to teleport on 6.13, where the cast is now longer. It takes 4.5 seconds to join the rest of your team, whereas if you have that Shen ultimate, you can just join the team fight immediately. You can be there to back up your allies and just get involved with the fight.
No ward required either. So H2K, they've really put it down to the wire to take their choices here. Not sure if you can call it uncertainty, but they're always a team that thinks very clearly about what they want to pick up. We have said that their pick and ban phase has not been the worst despite their results, and it's locked. We've got the Sivir on their side and a Malzahar. Tell me a little bit about the good old Void Prophet, Vedius.
I love this champion so much. I had an inkling that he would start to rise in terms of priority because he actually does very well into a lot of control mages like Azir and like Victor. I think that he can offer a huge amount of utility. Come the mid and late game, his actual damage output is ridiculous. He is a fantastic frontline killer, and when that Shen and Gragas tries to threaten your main damage dealers, he can just lock them up, you can quickly shut them down, and he can just do so much. We'll get more into it as we get into game, because there are so many interesting things you can say about the champion, but I like this early prioritization coming out from H2K.
Yeah, we saw that a lot going on in last week. Splice was able to pull off a game against G2 Esports right here in the studio, and there's the Sona lock-in. Ooh, I'm ready for some music.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Sona already in our first series of the day. You heard them on the desk. This is not the hot-fixed Sona. She is still above average in terms of pressure.
That is one very underscore way to put it, Vedius. I mean, how fast can you press Q, W, and E?
I know, right? So the damage to her Q did take a bit of a hit leveling up, but the healing is so strong right now. Her roaming potential is fantastic because she gets so much movement speed that no longer decays over time. And the aura range is a little bit bigger. There are just so many cool little changes to Sona. She is still this big, massive lane bully. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how paired up with a Lucian, H2K are going to be able to deal with this 2v2.
Yeah, Vitality have thrown down the gauntlet with this one. I'm looking forward to seeing how that lane pans out. The Hecarim now is locked in for Jankos with the jungle pool a little bit low in the water. It's going to be delving back into the pony, and we've got a Vlad locked in for Ryu as well. Or rather for Odo, we got a double kind of AP carry composition here. I like this.
I actually think this is a top lane Malzahar. So this is actually something we saw a lot in LCK, where they were picking the Malzahar into the Shen. MVP have done it a couple of times, and it basically means that the Shen can't do anything. He can't match the, he can't trade very well, he can't match the pushing power, and come the late game, Malzahar actually has a huge amount of kill threat. The obvious difference is the fact that Malzahar is a bit of a low mobility mage. He is susceptible to ganks in that very long lane, but wow, interesting strategy coming out from H2K. And the Vladimir change-up, obviously you do have some flexibility. You could put the Vlad up in the top lane, but given that we've never really seen it in top throughout the entire split, it's more of an expectation that you'd see it in the mid.
I mean, last time I saw one of those two champions in the top lane, it definitely was the Vlad, but that was a long time ago. And we've got a cast-in locked in for Nukeduck to finalize the roster. That's a lot of firing power on either side of the teams. I'm looking forward to see who comes out on top of this one for sure. A lot of interesting picks, a lot of different stuff on this 6.14 patch.
So excited, Pyra. This is a really interesting draft. We're seeing so many cool picks. We're seeing the casting into the Vlad, something that we have been seeing more and more recently all across the world. And just looking at the two compositions, you've got H2K very much about running at you. A great one forward, the Malzahar. He can be a surprisingly powerful split pusher. You could even set up the 1-3-1 as well. They have the engage tools with the Civet and the Hecarim. Meanwhile, on the other side, Vitality, they're running this mid to late game massive team fight comp, and they just have so many options. They can do 1-3-1. Oh, there are just so many possibilities, Pyre. So much to talk about.
Oh, this is going to be one of those games that's not short on action. That's for absolutely sure. But the teams have had in the past some issue trying to take the incentive, trying to take the reins of a game, but they've got all the tools they need to be able to do it this time around. If you think that team is going to be H2K, get your Twitter fingers ready. Hashtag H2K win over at LOL Esports with that double AP composition. Super speedy. If you think Vitality, though, are going to pull this one out with the first Sona we get to see here on patch 6.14, tweet hashtag VITWin. No matter what, I think the fans win this one.
Yeah. We're winners. We're the real winners, Pyra, because we get to cast this game. I'm really excited to see how these picks work out. And ladies and gentlemen, here we go. First game of Week 8 between H2K and Vitality. And as we've said, every win matters as we move towards playoffs.
Let's roll onto the Rift and find out who's going to take that first W.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go. Yes.
There we go. That's the Badger. Now, the most important thing we have to start with, Pyra, the most important thing is we have to look at what Drake spawns. Because now, all 4 Drakes are of high priority.
All right, don't get too far ahead of yourself. I mean, we've still got a couple of minutes before we're going to worry about it. But I know you. I have a feeling there's a particular dragon you want to talk about. So I'll give you a little bit on that later. I do want to look at this level 1 because, of course, we've got the line to scrimmage, so that neither team is really looking to go for a deep invade at this time. Just keep things safe, especially in a less conventional composition, less tested.
So, early game is what we need to keep our eyes on. The potential of the lane swap is quite high from H2K, simply because the Civet into Karma, great pushing power. They have great disengage, not likely to get ganked because they have the spell shield, they have the movement speed, a lot of options. But Vitality, their 2 versus 2 is just so powerful. With the Lucian, with the Sona, especially with the Sona running Ignite, it could be quite a scary 2 versus 2 for H2K to go in. But they're feeling confident, they want to try and challenge it. Seems to me like they know how to go up against this this interesting new pick.
If anything, looking at H2K's lineup, you know, they've kind of doubled down, obviously, on the damage and gone for the lane that they are sure to be able to win with the Malzahar. But I'm still a little bit concerned about their lack of tankiness as Vander steps a little far forward. Police and KaSing out of the shadows. And they get the double tap, instant ignite on. Vander might just get away with his life here. Should be, as KaSing's in chase.
That was a lot of early game damage. Smart from Vitality. Putting a ward in the river. Spotted out Vander as he moved up to try and intercept the early Gromp that was likely to come out. But Vitality read the play, and now they've gained so much pressure early on in this bottom lane. Vander's going to be forced to use his pots. Not only that, but Vitality are going to get the pushing advantage. And as I say that, the moment Vander returns to lane, Vitality actually back away. So, bit of a surprise, given that they had that initial dominance, decided not to push it too far. But what you're often going to see a lot of during this laning phase is, for the early game, until you hit level 2, the Sona isn't likely going to want to trade because you don't have the sustain to be able to bring it back up. And remember that early levels of the Q did take a bit of damage. The level 1 is still the same, but as you and Karma max Q, she will be able to deal more damage. And what makes Sona so obnoxious is the fact that she has this heal. We'll keep an eye out on what she decides to max so that we can keep people up to date on how people are shifting their Sona playstyle and how she decides to build as well. Because one of the big things is the changes to her ultimate that now give you cooldown reduction as well. And this doesn't affect your actual cooldown reduction.
Oh yeah, you can get like a huge,
85%.
It's like 85, yeah.
Yes, if you decide to go
and
for
this
that.
This is why you can press all the buttons.
Yeah.
All right, so Jankos is going on an invade spree here. He's going to find Shook out, stop him from taking his blue. Ghost is popped. He's going all in for this one. Can the Fat Man get back to tower? I'm not sure about that. He's going to belly bop away. But Shook has been stopped from taking his blue, and now Vander going for an invade again. Vitality have lost some ground in this jungle.
Shook, he has no mana. He's got very little health. The best he can hope for is a potential smite steal. But notice that Vander is here to provide support for Jankos as well. Very aggressive play. Good read from Jankos to know that he would have more health. He would be able to sustain better, and he just read that Shook would come round to this blue. So smart early jungle pathing from Jankos to get himself a slight advantage.
And Freeze wasn't even pressured while Vander was away for a few moments. Jankos in the right place at the right time. This is the reason Vitality was so hell-bent on denying him picks, but he's still able to do this with the Hecarim. Police, a Boomerang Blade, takes a big chunk out of his health bar.
So right now, what Vitality are struggling with is the amount of wave clear that's coming out from Freeze and Vander. They're just constantly pushing in the wave, not giving Vitality an actual opportunity to trade back and forth. But as you can see, they're not going to be too upset about the constant poke that's coming out because they have a huge amount of sustain. Just going to have a quick look at KaSing as... have a look in the mid lane. Jankos coming for a potential gank.
There we go. Nukeduck has to instantly pop his flash, and Jankos puts him up against the wall. Not enough to deal any more damage. Shield comes out, denies a little bit more from Ryu, and that will be the end of that.
So what Jankos is trying to do is punish the early laning phase of Nukeduck on this KaSing. Remember that he's not going to get that Void Step very early on. But Jankos, he wants a little bit more blood. A lot of damage come down onto Cabo.
Oh man, he's been on a Summoner's Rift tour right now. Cabo is going to taunt, gets knocked up, but he's still able to get away very low on health. So much for a safe laning champion when you're dealing with a Malzahar.
Oh yeah, very aggressive. And I mean, already a lot of early aggression coming out from Jankos on this Hecarim. Typically not what you see from a Hecarim. Very much about the farming, making sure that he hits those item spikes. But one of the big things that a lot of junglers say is, oh man, if you get an early lead, if you get your early item spike, you can very easily snowball that game. And he becomes this unstoppable onslaught of shadows.
He's already right on the track to do it. H2K have a lot of power, and if they can get ahead in the level game, they should be able to do quite a lot here. We talked a lot about this bottom lane, though. Let's focus a little bit more on the mid lane matchup, the KaSing and the Vladimir.
So, this is a really cool matchup because early on, Ryu has the pressure advantage. It's very difficult for a KaSing to trade well unless he actually gets to walk up to you and land some of his basic attacks. But for most of the time, the simple fact is Nukeduck, he can't sustain as much as Ryu can, so he can be as aggressive as he wants.
This might have been a mistake, though. Shook's still waiting in the wings. Ryu thinks he can take it to Nukeduck without the flash available. He's still going to run away, but in comes KaSing. And Ryu doesn't look like much of a music lover after that.
So Ryu, he's not going to be too upset. He had the Crimson Rush just as he was going in. Nukeduck forced to go back, and this is often what you'll see very early on. The big thing for KaSing, though, is he scales incredibly well. One of the few mid laners that can actually match the late game prowess of the Vladimir, simply because a typical build path for the KaSing is Rod of Ages into an Abyssal into a Zhonya's. You can shift up the Abyssal or the Zhonya's depending on your matchup, and against a double AP, you definitely want to pick up that second early Abyssal Scepter. You then want to transition that into a very quick Void Staff, because what you're likely going to see from Ryu is the early Spirit Surge. You can already see the Spectre's card coming out, which means that as the game progresses, because Nukeduck is going to have a lot of penetration and a lot of mobility, he will start to be able to out-pressure the Vladimir. So if H2K tried to set up the 1-3-1, Nukeduck will be able to deal with it, and he will be able to match the Vladimir as we approach that mid and late game.
Definitely a matchup to keep your eye on for sure. And it's one that can pretty much balance either or, but a lot of trouble in that top lane for the Shen to deal with. Cabochard does have his work cut out for him. He will be able to provide a lot for his team later on, but you can already see the farm starting to slip away from him. He's lost out in double digits now to Odoamne, and it's just so hard to deal with this Malz.
The thing about a Malzahar is he has a window early on that you can take advantage of, because the most obnoxious thing about Malz is his passive, where he basically doesn't take any damage for a short period of time, but the cooldown on it very early on is actually surprisingly long, which means that if you just hit him with a basic attack, you then have a long window where you can actually take advantage of the fact that he doesn't do that much damage during the early levels. He doesn't actually trade very well with you, and if he does decide, he can't push the wave as much as he would like to. The problem is for Shen is he can't really do that. He can't punish these early levels of a Malzahar, so he's free to get through that rough part of his typical laning phase, and he's allowed to then get to the level 6, level 7 mark, where he is just constantly pushing. He will have 4 even in his Malefic Vision. He will then also just throw all of his little Voidlings down, and it will be constant push, 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 push. Shen's going to always get shoved underneath the turret, and then if you want, you have Jankos come up, you get an easy tower dive with the ultimate, and Shen is just constantly on the back foot.
Speaking of pushing, constantly, Freeze and Vander have been able to do just that. It really has been both teams poking in, looking for a weakness, but Jankos has been a lot more active on the map, with Shook having to claw back into the farm game. He's so far behind, though, at this point. You can take a look. The levels haven't really made a difference, but there is the CS pretty atrociously different as he goes down towards this bottom side and spots the pink ward out. See if Vitality can get anything done down here. We wanted to talk about dragons at the beginning of the game. We do have an Ocean Drake spawning. I know you have...
yeah, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Now,
you have maybe not the happiest countenance after that.
No, I was hoping that we could celebrate. We could celebrate Cloud Drake Appreciation Day with a Cloud Drake, but unfortunately, he's decided to be late to his own party. But in any case, Ocean Drake will be on the table for the first dragon of the game. Still adds a lot of value during the laning phase, allows you to trade back and forth quite nicely because you can then get that sustain back up.
No rush to take it though at the moment.
Yeah, there's no rush.
They're still just laning it out.
You have to remember that both teams have more of a scaling composition. Looks like Police is edging his way towards more of the mid-game build, so Vitality will hit a slightly earlier spike. But the question is, will they try to force anything with it? They have the Gragas, they have good ways to engage. You also have the Sona for the flash crescendo if you want to try and make a play that way.
Yeah. Well, and Shen's got his ult, and he has for a few minutes now, so he's always able to get involved and save what can potentially be a bad engage. And H2K, knowing this, they're not going to push the envelope too far. As Freeze and Vander did back away, too, you could see that Police and KaSing actually caught back up on the CS. They weren't far behind to begin with, but it gives them a bit more breathing room to start pushing in, and Nukeduck and Ryu just go at each other yet again. A lot of sustain, though, between those two mids.
Yeah, so now that Nukeduck, he's got a couple points in his queue. He has decided to max the E because the slow is actually really powerful for him, simply because every time he rift walks in, one of the weaknesses that you have is that they can just trade back with you as you're on the retreat. So if you max your slow, it then makes it easier to get away. So then they can't as comfortably then go for the re-engage onto you as you're trying to back off. Which is why he's decided to do that. Really good trading back and forth as well. And it also assists in your early wave clear. And against a Vladimir, that is sort of what you want. So I like the adaptation. Going more towards, I need to just get through this laning phase and know that I outscale, rather than I want to try and fight this Vladimir as much as possible. Because if he'd max the Q, it would give him the shield, which means that he would take less damage from the Vlad, and would deal more damage on an individual target, which means that it would be easier for them to then go for the back and forth in the mid.
So many wards in this game. In the river, been cleared out constantly. KaSing on the roam. Very speedy Sona. That's some of the changes coming in there. Or KaSing goes on the roam, back down towards the bottom side. Ryu's still trying to push in, and again, not all in Nukeduck, but at least force him off some of these creeps. Yeah,
I mean, it's still a Kassadin, it's still a Vladimir. Vladimir has the sustained advantage, and it's still early levels, in which case the Nukeduck is just going to have to deal with the fact that he's getting it pushed under the turret, and he can't match that sort of sustain. So as the game progresses, things will get a little bit easier for the Kassadin, as we mentioned earlier on. But I do want to backtrack a little bit to what you just said about the roaming from Sona, because this is one of the big changes that we did see to her. Now her E gives you 3 seconds of flat movement speed. For those wondering, KaSing has decided to max his heal first over his Q, so going more for the sustain rather than the lane bully style of play. But this does mean that on top of that, you have to remember that when KaSing is on his own, he gets additional, that movement speed lasts for even longer as Cabo getting all in.
Speaking of last long, yeah, Odoamne finding a lot of damage, forcing the flash, and the Zerg Rush comes in. Not enough damage to finish him, though.
Oh, man. That's the risk that you face when going up against a Malzahar. The percentage max health damage that his ultimate does is devastating for a lot of tanks. And even with the early magic resist, Odo was just cleanly able to shred through it. So, really impressive stuff from Odo. You also have to remember that the Voidlings, they do a lot of damage.
Over a very short period of time, that's for sure. But H2K definitely trying to win the favor in this game, and trying to win the crowd's favor, too. Look at how close that fan vote is. 52% in Vitality's corner.
Wow. Guess the faith has dropped from the H2K department.
Well, we'll have to see if they can pull it right on back for them. It's still tough to have 3 losses in a row. Ryu trying to turn around some damage back on Nukeduck. Right now, though, they're not lacking for aggressive moves in this early game, but neither team has really gotten a good edge over the other. Overall gold is very close to even as we crest the 13-minute mark in this game.
Yeah, we saw a bit of early aggression from Jankos. He has since backed off a little bit in terms of the pressure, largely because he hasn't seen any big opportunities. But if he is going to gank anywhere, top lane is the easiest lane to gank. Not only does Cabo not have his flash, but Odo's ultimate is about to come back up. You have the damage from Malzahar, you combine that with Jankos, who on this Hecarim has a lot of early game damage. It can very quickly translate into a dead shit.
It might translate to a dead dragon as well. Puts the scythe right into the head of him, so Vander and Freeze will join the party, and they will be able to secure this first dragon. Shook is peeking his nose around the corner, however. He'd have to attempt to steal. It's going to go down very low. Finally gets smited, and Shook looking for a fight. Spell shield is on Freeze, though. Jankos is going to have to onslaught over the wall.
That's okay, though. It's an ultimate that basically says, hey, we've got ourselves this objective. We're not going to try and force a fight anytime soon, so we're just going to use our ultimates to be happy with the fact that, hey, we've got something. Let's just not get too greedy right now.
All right, well, speaking of something, Vedius,
here we go.
I think your favorite dragon is about to come up.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and show your appreciation to the Cloud Drake, as in 6 minutes he makes his way onto the Rift in his empowered form. Oh man, Cloud Drake.
Well, Cloud Drake. All right, so I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, or your clouds in this case, but it gets the buff, but a lot of people might have not gone over the patch notes and looked at it and say, okay, what exactly does this extra 10 at first move speed mean?
So, I want to get into it, but I also want to talk about Jankos, who's...
There's no wave anymore, Vedius. It's okay.
He's okay. He's looking for something. But the same pressure is happening on the top side of the map. This is smart from Vitality. They realize that Cabo can't hold on to this turret for much longer, and so they're trying to just quickly take down this tier 1 in the bottom lane to try and match it. But yes, let's go back to the Cloud Drake for a second. Cloud Drake now, the first Cloud Drake gives you 25 movement speed.
Which is boots.
Which is effectively boots, yes.
Out of combat, at least.
And what it means is that you get to lane 0.1 second faster than you would previously when having the first Cloud Drake, right?
May not sound like a lot.
First Cloud Drake is not that much different, okay? It's pretty much the same, right? More or less. A little bit better, but more or less the same. Second Cloud Drake, though, gives you 50 out of combat movement speed, right? Now, that alone means that you can rotate from bod to mid a whole 2 seconds faster than without any Cloud Drake at all.
Yeah.
2 seconds. That is huge. You get to lane 3 seconds faster. So that means if the Vladimir got back to lane 3 seconds before, he can push an entire minion wave before KaSing even gets an opportunity to get there. If you get 3 Cloud Drakes, that's 75 movement speed, you can get to lane 5 seconds faster than you would typically. You can get to Dragon 6 seconds faster if you're on the red side.
So just for everyone who's wondering how Vedius knows all this, he's been basically locked in his lab for like 3 days testing it.
With Pulse.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, with Pulse, of course. You've always got to have an assistant, right?
Yes.
So they will knock down the first tower. 16 minutes into the game, it's still 0-0 in kills, and that's important. This is the first game we've had all split where we haven't actually had a kill in the first 15 minutes. And that includes like the crazy 80-minute long games we've had. So despite the action on the map, neither team has been able to find the first casualty.
Well, it's not that surprising when both teams do have slightly more scaling comps. Now that Police does have his Ghost Blade, he could look to be a little bit more aggressive. But Vitality is struggling a little bit, largely because of the pressure that Odo's put down. Notice that by himself, he's taken down that tier 1 in the top lane. And I want to keep my eyes on where he decides to put himself now, because he could just continue to sit in that side wave, but if he continues to put pressure on, he's going to go past the danger zone. And once you pass that river, the danger zone is a very serious threat that many pro players have fallen prey to, because it means that your jungler, it's so much easier for him to come back and set up a gank, and that is a very long lane that you are very susceptible to die from.
It's certainly something worth keeping in mind. The danger zone is well documented, by the way, Vedius. We've even got songs about it.
Danger, danger. Have voltage. Yeah, anyway,
that's a different song.
But it's
that's
also the one I always come to.
That's a good one, though. I didn't know you knew Electric Six.
I just know that song.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And the music video.
That's slightly less impressive. But all right. Anyways, the Voidlings are helping out clear this wave, but look at what Police have gone down to do. Police and KaSing have gone up to do, rather, in the mid. They get a little bit of chip damage on the turret before Ryu can respond in kind. Vitality have gotten a little bit more aggressive here. Shook just barely hits the edge of the fear, but doesn't have to go far. Ryu running into that brush will take a little bit of damage for his trouble, but it's just love taps right now. Still, Jankos wants to find an opening. Odoamne's joined the fray, and it's just poke back and forth. No one's willing to full commit.
All 5 members, though, of H2K have grouped up in the mid lane. With no ultimate available on Jankos, as well as on the hunt down for Freeze, it is unlikely that H2K will continue to try and force anything. But it's interesting that Vitality have now decided to shift into the 1-3-1 setup. KaSing, having completed his Rod of Ages at about the 12-minute mark, has accrued himself 6 stacks. So he's getting to that pretty beefy point where now he's going to trade pretty happily back and forth with that Vladimir. You can see the workings of his Abyssal Scepter. And with that teleport, it's going to be so much easier for him to join the rest of his team. So Vitality have said, hey, we're going to force this sooner. But Police...
Base checks, yeah. Never want to do that. So he's bit of an issue, and there might be a Hecarim standing around. Jankos has actually gone a little bit further deep here. TP is going to get channeled. Jankos might be the one caught around the side, but Cabochard and Odoamne, we're going one-on-one right now. It's about to be a lot more. In comes Nukeduck, blindsided by Jankos, and there's the Shenhold coming onto him as he turns his attention over for first blood. It goes to Nukeduck.
And look, Shook, he wants to continue on with the aggression, but fortunately Vander is there to help the pony with his escape. But great use of the teleport from Nukeduck. He knew that there was no way for Ryu to follow up on that play. And initially, when you'd think, oh no, H2K are just going to get the turnaround and kill Nukeduck, he actually is able to land the Q, which interrupts channeling abilities. Really smart play from Vitality. They net themselves a kill, and this is the risk when you go past the danger zone, Pyra. We talked about it earlier.
Speaking of danger zone, Ryu, he steps right up. Look at that. He's able to sustain through it mostly, but you're right. You've got to be careful. You've got to respect this if you're H2K. Now you can see that Jankos is coming in hot here for Cabochard. Let's see if he'll be able to make his great escape. The Ninja does. Slowly walk it out as he spotted the Hecarim on the pink board. This is going to seat tower over, though.
Yes, it is. So Ryu, he decided, I'm just going to keep pushing down this bottom lane. I know that the Shen isn't going to be able to stop me. Even with the very early Spirits Visage, it is not enough to deal with the pressure, and Jankos just came around to guarantee it. So have a look at this. You can see the TP comes in very early on. Cabochard forces the play, and Odoamne, he reads it. He's like, oh no, I'm getting collapsed on. I need to stop this. Jankos, there it is. Did you see that? That was so good from Nukeduck. He threw out the Q just as the ultimate was coming out. Gets the interrupt. It means that no longer will Odo have any damage to net himself the kill, and it's pretty much just a duck left out in open water. So great turnaround, great collapse coming out from Vitality. But overall, H2K do get a net game because they get themselves another turret.
Yeah, there's no towers taken by Vitality right now, so that gold difference is actually being mostly made up by those towers at the moment. H2K aren't keen to give any more over, and they're standing pretty strong in this mid lane. Clouddrake's hit the Rift live, though, so let's see how much priority that Vitality's going to put on it. They meander their way in that direction right now.
Now, what you have to remember is while the Clouddrake is much better, and the more you have, the more value it is, the problem is it's still not an Infernal Drake. It's definitely a better looking Drake. I mean, you know, he's done his hair, he's done his makeup.
You're still mean to Clouddrake,
he's
man.
Looking
like,
pretty
he's
good.
Trying. He gives more movement
pretty
speed. It's like, nah, man, your brother's way cooler than you, no matter what.
But that's the problem. Brothers are still way cooler than him, and they want him at the party.
Cool
but
brother,
forget about that, because right now, Clouddrake being picked up for Vitality, Baron being started for H2K.
This is pulling the trigger. Okay, so Clouddrake goes over, but talk about a handsome older brother. The big purple worm right now is going down to half its health. It's spotted out, but H2K are not going to peel off for the commit here. Odoamne stopped up police. They're seeing if they can get even more as he sustains up through the Sona. It's smited away. They secure it, but in goes everyone. H2K are pinballed around the side. Police takes out Jankos. Shook going low, though, maybe regretting that decision. Police trying to get away from Ryu, but the chase, the ghost, can he get enough damage? He doesn't even care about Nukeduck at his back. A double kill over to the Vladimir, and he's still on the run.
Oh my word. H2K make the decisive play. They get themselves the Baron, and Ryu gets away. Everything falling into place for H2K. The communication issues of last week seem to have disappeared as they net themselves a massive lead very early on.
No one expects the 21-minute Baron. H2K secure that up. They get themselves 3 kills for 1. They're pushing for mid-tier 1 now. Should be able to finally polish it off. No defense. Vitality can really muster here, and 22 minutes into the game, they've really built themselves this lead. Let's take a look at it again.
So Police, he tries to put what damage down he can, but he gets locked up by Odo and Ryu. He gets forced back incredibly quickly. Baron comes down, 3-man ult by KaSing, into the taunt, into the knockback, but unfortunately for them, Kassadin still isn't there. He used his teleport earlier on, and without one of the big damage dealers on Vitality unavailable, that resulted in H2K being able to turn the fight around, get themselves the Baron, get themselves 2 kills, and this gold has suddenly swung massively in H2K's favor.
Yeah, you can't be happy about that if you're Sean's. It looked so good, so even, but H2K, we questioned their cohesiveness as a team, the shot calling ability. It seems to not be an issue in this game as they still maintain this 4,000 gold lead, and they've settled very comfortably into a 1-3-1.
Looks like right now there is something in the brush. Perhaps a sneaky Nukeduck, or perhaps something else.
Enough to get the damage out. They're going to be bringing Cabochard to the party. He steps right on into it. Rio, he's going to try to get some backup here as Vander and Freeze have joined the party, but the tower's still standing strong. Or is it Cabochard going in onto Rio, and how sustaining is that Vladimir?
he can just soak up so much damage. You can hear the players just so passionately talking with each other right now. H2K using this Baron to their advantage. Odo, he doesn't have even TP, but it doesn't matter because they forced the ult out from Cabo. He was drawn to the bottom half of the map. That enabled Odo to get the damage down onto that turret, and another net objective gained for the side of H2K.
Keep on stacking up the gold. The dividends flowing in right now as Vitality are trying to hang on to their towers. 4-0. They have not been able to secure anything on the other side of the map right now, shy of that first Cloud Drake. There will be another one coming up, so maybe they can get light on their feet, but they need to stay alive. It's only 24 minutes in, and they're losing ground fast.
They certainly are, Pyra. And, oh, things starting to shift in this top lane.
Hold on, Nethergrass, they've got Voidlings all around him right now, but Odo, he's got to worry about Nukeduck coming around the side. Cabo going incredibly low.
Cabo!
Secure the kill, and it's a 1-for-1 trade with help.
Malzahar, ladies and gentlemen, he gets the 1v1 against Cabo. And even though Nukeduck does come in to clean up the fight just continues.
Yeah, Jankos looking for Shook right here. Freeze with on the hunt. Shook stops to take a drink. That might have been a mistake. Down he goes. Jankos getting that one. The crescendo only slows him for a minute.
And oh my word, the action just continues as they might be going for a dive.
Oh, this game has turned into a real powder keg. Ryu's on the wrong side of the base right now. He just doesn't even care. Keeps draining the blood out of Nukeduck, and he goes in for the pool. In comes Vander, Jankos, and Freeze around the side, staying alive, zoning them from their own turret. They finally will get some minions back in here, but they don't even need it just yet. Look at how much they can chunk it. 25 minutes, inhibitor tower dead.
Vitality are on the back foot. After one incredible Baron play, in just 4 minutes, H2K have broken into Vitality's base, and this was a big part as to why that was able to come to be. Look at the damage from Odo. Initially, things look bad. He throws down the ultimate, 5 Voidlings beating down onto Cabo. At the last second, Odo just about gets another Malefic Vision off. The Voidlings are just within range to hit him in the face, and then he gets himself the kill. Jankos then forces a fight in the bottom half of the map. He knows the KaSing isn't going to be able to get there in time with a 3 versus 3, and without KaSing really being in a place to use that disengage ultimate, they get themselves another kill, they get themselves the tier 3 turret in the bottom lane, and right now they are sitting at a 5-3 kill lead, 6k gold lead, and a firm grasp over this game 1.
Oh, and that chatter doesn't stop. You can hear from H2K's side how much they're communicating constantly back and forth, looking for the next objective. 6,500 gold, the lead at 26 minutes here into this game. Vitality just trying to claw something back to stay alive in this. Their playoff hopes very dependent on the next 4 games, but especially this one against a team that is only 2 points away from them in the standings right now.
As we mentioned, Pyra, every single win is so important for these teams. And for H2K, who have been on a bit of a slump, this is definitely a win that they need to get themselves, considering the other games that they have coming up within the next few weeks.
Oh, yeah. Likes of Splice, Unicorns coming out after that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I think
teams you can't afford to underestimate it.
Even Origin can be a wild card. Their back's up against the wall. You never know what they're going to be able to pull off. But H2K, they've looked so much stronger in this series already, so much more cohesive. Will they keep this pressure on? It has been nonstop since the early Baron.
And I love this play from H2K because they knew they had a lead, and they have just been unforgiving with it. They punish Vitality so heavily for misprioritizationing. That's not a word, but here we go.
That's okay.
Sure.
I'm at a loss sometimes, too, when these games go the way they do. Ryu and Jankos forced to dance, but in comes the onslaught of shadows. Cabochard joined the fray, but it is just a melee over here in the mid lane. Nukeduck getting stopped up, and he can't get anything else off. Has to rift walk back into his base, but he's bleeding health right now as Ryu, with the Tides of Blood, forces the rest of Vitality back. Shook wants to get a parting shot, but it won't do anything.
So no damage done to either team in terms of kills, but another objective picked up for H2K. 7-0 in turrets right now in their favor. They're going to net themselves another Drake, and while nobody does go down, H2K can still be happy with how that fight went.
Everything is happening on Vitality's side of the map. They do not get to choose where and how they fight. H2K are owning this right now, and if you're pro, you have to be happy with this team's turnaround performance, given the last couple of weeks.
Completely. I mean, I'm impressed with how H2K are playing, but the question is, was that a Baron that they set up for, or was that a Baron that they saw an opportunity and then quickly took it? And you could argue that that was in part a mistake from Vitality that allowed H2K to set up for that play, rather than H2K creating an environment for themselves where they could take that early Baron and then transition that into a lead.
But what's really important for H2K is that they are playing to the win conditions that they have. It's not all about, like, how are you going to go around the map, right? You have a team that is so much damage. It's not as hard to take an early Baron when you have a lot of that compared to just, your normal tank's top lane. So they took very well advantage of the fact that Vitality were just far enough away.
I completely agree with you. You can't underestimate Malzahar with his ability to take down that Baron. You saw how much damage he did to the Shen.
Ooh,
Speaking of Odo.
Okay, that was a quick flash to get out of dodge. And Cabo now is going to be zoned off, but you can see H2K focusing in on the top lane right now. They haven't taken any inhibitors just yet, but they're knocking on the doors.
So here we go. Nukeduck is in the bottom lane. He's just hit level 16. He's completed the Abyssal and the Rod of Ages, deciding to go for a Lich Bane as, ooh, Jankos goes in.
Around the side, Shook instantly into the Nether Grasp, and he's going nowhere over the wall before he dies. Freeze will get the kill credit, and that is instantly going to be Baron. Nukeduck, Cabochard, both rocking teleport. Will they be able to stop this? Wards are flying. In comes the TP. H2K peel off.
KaSing does have his ultimate. He's posturing. He's looking for that multi-man as Jankos continues the Baron.
They're right back into it, but Nukeduck's coming in. He's bringing Cabochard and Freeze. Look at how low his health bar is going right now. But once again, we're right back into the fight. Nukeduck trying for the chase. Doesn't have the damage, or does he? Finally finishes off Freeze, but in goes the rest of the team. Police Malefic Visions burning him down. The rest of H2K have arrived, or rather have started to chase down the rest of Vitality, and there's nothing doing for this team.
Vitality tried so hard to stop that Baron from happening, but they just could not do it. Without their jungler present, it just wasn't enough to turn the fight around. Cabo now, he's going to be can he be the hero?
Looking for Ryu. The pool's out though, and he is going to be locked up yet again inside the Baron pit. They take him down. It's all on Shook if he can go for the Miracle Steal, waiting in the brushes, but he's got to move fast. Silence, can he get over the wall in time? He tries for it. It's smited at the last second by Jankos, and Shook will give his life.
So close. 100 HP on top of that. He tried to use the Smite ultimate to get himself the steal, and it was so close. But Jankos, he held on to his Smite. He didn't cave underneath the pressure. He netted his team the Baron, and now H2K have everything they need to close out game one.
Cool nerves on this H2K team to just pull off everything they need to. The gold lead, 10,000 now ahead. It's 30 minutes into this game. H2K have everything but the base.
So impressive from H2K.
Oh, God,
KaSing, my word. The Malefic
the heal
Vision
is not
into
enough,
the
man.
Voidlings. That is just so much damage. Remember that the Morenomicon has been completed, so that cuts your healing in half. It really does make it so much easier for Odo to just quickly kill that support.
You ever have one of those really bad dreams, Vedius?
What kind of bad dreams?
Malefic. KaSing may be wishing he had a little higher of a health pool right now. It's going to be inhibitor time for H2K. Everyone's coming on back. There is still the Crescendo ultimate. Police will nail away at the wave with the culling. Still going down to half its health here. Ryu zoning the rest of the team off. You can see the KaSing in the back. Nukeduck trying to turn a fight, but that inhib's already dead.
And H2K taking advantage of this Baron. They have good wave clear with the Mals, the Vlad, the Sivir, and this is where Vitality is starting to struggle. With the Kassadin, they have no real way to try and clear out all these Baron-empowered minions. And if they wanted to, H2K could just send Odo to the top. He has the level 17 Malzahar. He's 4-2-4 right now, but they're just going for the mid.
Yeah, Ryu takes a little bit of damage from Nukeduck, and that is a huge chunk of damage they're dealing onto the tower. It's already going down. Cabochard gets the taunt off to Jankos, but it's not going to mean a damn thing. Inhibitor going down. They turn on to Nukeduck. They charge him down, and even through the Shen shield, it doesn't matter. Freeze blanks him down to 0. Ryu right on top of the Nexus turrets, and this team is going to take it all the way to the finish. Goodbye, KaSing. A double kill for Jankos, and they keep on moving. Cabochard picks up 1, but that is just not enough.
H2K, they know they can force the fight. They pop the ultimate to their disposal, and they get the kills that they need to close out game 1 of this series.
33 minutes, H2K, what a masterful performance, and GG.